slept better than Terry Fontenot last night, because he went to bed getting not just the guy that he was targeting at 15, but someone he didn't even think in a wet dream would be there at 15 in Georgia's Jaylen Walker. So the Falcons go into day 2 feeling like they are on top of the NFL mountain right now, getting not just their guy, but someone who was way out of their coverage as well. Welcome on in to Falcons Today by Chat Sports. We're going to break down day 1 a little bit, of course, and then talk about a draft target or two for Atlanta in round 3. They have pick 101 from the Rams, the final pick of round 3. But let's just, after sleeping on it, kind of recap and reset a little bit for what Atlanta pulled off in round 1. Starting at pick 15, Falcons just sitting there thinking, all right, we're going to go get an edge rusher. James Pearce clearly emerged as their guy over Mike Green, Donovan Ezoroku, a handful of other pass rushers as well. And then Jaylen Walker falls to their lap. And he might not be everyone's traditional edge. And to be honest, he's not my traditional edge. He's 6'1", 243 pounds. In a 3-4 defense, he can't play, with his hand in the ground. He didn't do that a lot last year in Athens. I don't think he's traditionally large enough to play, as an outside linebacker on first, second, and third down. But as I said before, and I'll continue to say it, right now Atlanta's defense just needs an influx of talent. It does. You got Jesse Bates at safety. You got A.J. Terrell at corner. But the front 7, it's not that they all are bad, but there's no one there. Let me ask you this question, and this isn't the best, only metric. Is there anyone in the front 7 that you would buy a jersey for? And that's a kind of a dumb argument, I know that, but I think that's not the worst measuring stick to go, hey, is there anyone here that we feel like is a good investment for long term, right? Someone that I foresee being on this team and being a good player that I'd spend 100+ bones on. I got no one. No one. Jaylen Walker's going to be that guy. Maybe you don't buy his jersey, but he will be here for a long time, and I think he's going to be the staple of Atlanta's defense. He only started 1 year for Georgia. I'm not going to knock that against him. If he played at Mississippi State, or if he played at Kentucky or any other school pretty much, he would have been a 3-year starter. But when you play at Georgia, there's a lot of NFL talent above you. So Jaylen Walker, I think, is going to start off as an off-ball linebacker, next to Caden Ellis, and on 3rd and 9, right? When the home crowd is on their feet, loud, and the flags are waving, I think you're going to get Jaylen Walker, you're going to get James Pearce and Leonard Floyd all getting after the quarterback, Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson at linebacker, and you're going to have your best players on the field for the biggest moments. And not to make too big of a deal or not to fantasize too much, how many times last year or the year before that, we'll just go the 2 years, were there opportunities for Atlanta's defense to end the game, get a stop, and there was no one there to make the play? I'm thinking about the Vikings game 2 years ago. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here, but you let Josh Dobbs with 5 days of practice drive down the field and win the game. Jaylen Walker, I think, is a piece on defense that doesn't let that happen. I love, love, love the Walker pick. So then, after taking Walker, the Falcons are like, all right, moving along here a little bit, James Pearce is still available. And we think the Rams could want him. That was my thought. We think the Ravens, I'm getting all my teams twisted around here. We think the Ravens could want him at 27. At 26, let's trade back into round 1, which initially I was like, whoa, that's a bit steep. But shout out to whoever was in the comment section going well, you just used next year's first round pick on James Pearce this year. And I'm like, when you put it that way, my dumb brain kind of computes it better. So here are the trade details. Atlanta sending their second round pick this year, first round pick next year for 26 and pick 101. So I think the more bite-sized way to looking at it is the Falcons use next year's first for this year. So they basically got 2 first-round picks this year. And as a penalty for borrowing next year's first-round pick, they go from 46 to 101. I don't care about the 7th rounder. Go from 46 to 101. You're dropping 50 spots for James Pearce. And next year, you're betting on picking better for Atlanta than 15, right? Closer to 32. if you pick earlier than 15 next year, it's not a good trade most likely, because then you start to wonder, would you have taken James Pearce 10th overall next year? Probably not, right? But if you had the 25th pick next year, you'd be very happy with that trade. So I look at it as a 50 plus point penalty going from 46 down to 101, which to Terry Fontenot, like I said at the beginning of the video, that's got to be highway robbery in his eyes. Like, no one, I think, is happier as a GM right now. I mean, here's what I want to share what ESPN wrote about this. Okay. Let me just scroll up. Here it is. Ready? I'll put it on screen here, and I'll just kind of read the highlights, but you can kind of, take it all in. But everyone knew the Falcons had to draft a pass rusher early in this draft, likely in the first round. There was Mike Green, Shamir Stewart, but getting Jaylen Walker, who ranked 10th for me, is a steal. He slid down the board as teams picking earlier focused on offense, which was huge for Atlanta because not a very good tackle class beyond round 1. So if you wanted one, you could not wait. And we saw the Saints do that. Kelvin Banks, the UGA took his lunch money, gave it. Here's what Georgia did, okay? And I'm a Tennessee guy, so this takes a lot for me to praise Georgia. Georgia, the first time they played Texas, took Kelvin Banks' lunch money. And then in the fourth quarter, Michael Williams just slipped that back into his back pocket so that when they played again the SEC championship, they could take it again. When Kelvin Banks had to play Georgia and Michigan, their two toughest opponents last season for the Longhorns, he got bullied. Bad pick by New Orleans. So yeah, a lot of buzz right now for the Jaylen Walker pick. And then you find a way to get James Pearce, who you wanted all along. You get both your guys. Hard not to be excited about that. All right, let's just switch gears a little bit and talk about what Atlanta could do with pick 101. Quick shout out to our sponsor today, which is Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for hard to get playoff seats. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch or tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, NBA playoff tickets, NHL tickets. So if you want to go see the Nuggets, the Avs, or if you're brave enough to go watch the Rockies, Game Time might have to pay you to go watch the Rockies, which I don't think I can say, but the Rockies right now. Anyway, check out Game Time because you can save on last minute deals. Up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So check out the Game Time app. Take the guesswork with buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Let's take a look at some of the draft targets for Atlanta with pick 101, which is a long wait, but I just want to throw a couple names at you. After going offensive, after going off-ball linebacker, edge rusher with Walker, and James Pearce, edge rusher, they might just go say, screw it, we're going to get another defensive end. We've gotten a linebacker, we've gotten an outside linebacker. Let's go get a traditional defensive end. And if that's the case, Braden Swinson from LSU, I think could be a really good pick at this spot here. He's kind of gone under the radar a little bit because the production didn't pop at LSU, but he's got good size, he's got good athleticism to him, and I know those are cliches, but that could be a name to watch for. But if Atlanta decides, let's go DB, let's kind of go and help that side or that department. There are two names I would think that the Falcons could look at as potential steals that fall to them because of a couple of flags that other teams have. First is Notre Dame cornerback Benjamin Morrison. If he entered the draft after 2023, he would have been a first-round pick. He was a lockdown corner for the Fighting Irish. He's got great ball skills, but he suffered a hip injury last year. And a hip injury is going to scare the bejesus out of people. But picking at 101, you're not really guaranteed. I'd rather take the swing on a guy who should have gone round one if not for an injury. But he fell to you because of the injury. And sure, you could play it safe, but the guy you're playing it safe with is not a really high ceiling guy. I'd rather take someone who you kind of let sit for a year-ish. You know, you've got 3 starters already on defense at corner. Let that hip get healthy at 101. And then in 2026, you could have your starting corners be Morrison, Terrell, and Bates at safety. I like that one a lot. Okay, that's one. The other one I want to toss out there is Kevin Winston. This is the Penn State safety. He also suffered an injury as well. I want to tell you more about him. Just get his notes up. My notes on him up. Okay, here's what I want you guys to know about Kevin Winston. 6'1", 213 pounds, so from a size standpoint, pretty good. However, he only played the first 2 games for the Nittany Lions last year. He was a team captain. He was a 2-year starter for them, but unfortunately, he suffered a pretty bad left knee injury early in 2024. But if you go back to what he did in 2023 as a safety, the production might not pop out to you, but man, when you put the tape on, it's hard not to kind of fall in love with him. He had 6 pass breakups, an interception, 2.5 tackles for loss. Here's what Dane Brugler kind of says about him. Winston is still green in the way he diagnoses play development, but the tools are there for him to eventually become a quality NFL starter. If he's given a specific role and allowed to grow into the scheme, rust should be expected during his rookie season. You don't need him to start, but I think him and Jesse Bates would be a really good duo at safety for the next couple of years. So those are 2 guys that I think are worth kind of looking at as potential projects to work on to kind of let them get healthy. I'll toss out one more name. This is a pure, raw development project. If there's concerns about Caleb McGarry at right tackle, Charles Grant, he went to William and Mary, so teams are always going to disregard, the traditional, non-Power 5 schools, Power 4, but he was the mountain for them last year. He only allowed, I think, 1 sack or 1 pressure. It was ridiculously low number. He is a work in project. He's kind of new to football in general, but if you are like, hey, I'm gung-ho about getting a new right tackle, you could get Grant, let him develop a year in the NFL, and then he could take over from McGarry after 2025, and he could be a true blindside protector for Michael Penix. So 3 names right there I'll toss out for Atlanta. All right, that will do it for us. We're going to be live. I hope we're going to be live. My boss kind of gave me some mixed signals on that, but we're going to break down every pick and everything like that. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. If you're still watching, drop an ATL down below.